Welcome to Encore, the show for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs, brought to you by the Encore Entrepreneur Institute. Today, we are talking about intrapreneurship, acting like an entrepreneur in your current job with Rick Whitted, the host of On Your Way to Work. Welcome, Rick.
Thanks a lot. It's good to be here, Janice. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, definitely. And yes, y'all, we're talking about the JOB today because some of us must let our job finance our business until our business can finance our job. So let's get started. So Rick, tell us a bit about yourself, how you come to start the On Your Way to Work show and why.
Yeah, so I've been in the banking industry for nearly 2.5 decades now, and just have learned a lot over that through my own career mistakes about what can cause you to wander in the workplace wilderness. And about 3-4 years ago, I started writing a book that's now out, Outgrow Your Space at Work, How to Thrive at Work and Build a Successful Career. And I got to tell you, it ended up being more therapy for me than anything. Anybody that knows me is I'm an overachiever. I got 1,000 things going on. And what I've found out as I started by writing these 9 steps that really help you outgrow your space, whatever space that is. By the time I got to the end of that, I realized I had never in my life asked one great question. Why do you want to be promoted in the first place? Why do you want career progression? And surprisingly, I couldn't answer the question. I thought about it. I had been so conditioned by everything around me to win and to win at work. I never really asked, why do you want to win at work? Why do you want your career to progress and have success? And I mean, you start answering questions, and as I answered it, I just got down to status and stuff. Well, it couldn't have. It's not just for money. That doesn't drive me alone. I think that's a consequence of your actions. Money is. It's not, the title and prestige. It wasn't that. Those aren't things that. Well, maybe they did the first part of my career, but those aren't things that really drive me. And by the time I finished, I had discovered something that I think is amazing, and that is we use work. We tend to use work to answer a very big life question that work was never intended to answer. And that question is my life moving forward? And while we say, well, I want career progression. I want to move forward in my career. Emotionally, we are processing, is my life moving forward? The counter to that is when it feels like our career has stopped, we are saying, oh my God, I got to get out of here. My career is no longer moving. Emotionally, what we're filtering is, oh my God, my life just stopped. And, I did a lot of research through the years, and a couple of things that I found were very interesting. So the American Psychological Association does this stress in American adults survey, pretty often. And they came up with 4 or 5 top stressors for adults: work, money, personal health, financial stress, or family health, and family responsibility. And number 1 was money. No surprise at 64%, but very close to it was work at 60%. And work actually beat out the things we all say we work for: family health, family responsibility, and personal health. And as I look through that data, I just begin to realize there is something about work that is much more emotional than we believe it to be. And then there's another, I'm a workplace career stat geek, so you'll have to forgive me. But the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that, we spend roughly almost 60% of our awake time at work. So when you strip away sleep, we spend nearly 60%. And this is average. So for crazy people like you and I who've got 5,000 things going on, just forget about it. It's probably approaching 80%. But for the average person, we are either doing work or any work-related activity for nearly 60% of our awake time. So what does that mean? That means we end up doing most of our life out. We play it out on the stage of work. And what I found as I, both did the research and kind of went through personal therapy writing this book, I found out that because we spend so much time at work, subconsciously, let me say that different, because we spend so much of our life at work, subconsciously we use work to measure life. Wow. And that's why, just a few minutes ago, what did you and I start talking about? So what do you do? How long have you been doing it? And the reason that's a question we all tend to ask is because first we measure ourselves, the progression of our own lives by work, many of us subconsciously, and we measure others and they know it. We all know it. Anyway, that caused me to write Outgrow Your Space at Work. And I thought I was trying to give folks in the workplace, some steps to really just outshine everybody around you and, walk away mastering, a skill set, trade, industry, or whatever. What I found is we never take the time to even ask the question. It's just assumed you want career success. The problem with that is, so how do you define it? What is it? Is it money? Is it a position? Or is it trust, being valued? Is it being a key player on the team? Is it work-life balance? Is it meaning in the work I do? 71% of millennials say what's most important, one of the most important things in their career is meaning in the work they do. And these are just questions we never ask.
No, I totally agree with that. I want to ask you this question. I was going to ask you later on, but let me just jump right into it. So, because I've been in this situation, and I have to tell you, I'm the type of person, I'm sort of a perfectionist wannabe, because, if you really are a perfectionist, that's impossible. Yeah. So my success to me is saying what I'm going to do or working my plan and seeing it come to fruition as smoothly and successfully as possible, whatever that means the outcome is. And what happens when you have a boss that says they want to see you be successful, but every time you try to do something, they squash you, or they squash your plans, or whatever you say just does not go over well. And it may be because I know in my situation, my boss at that time was probably mental. And I know this from other employees who worked with her and have worked with her since. But how do you manage that so you can still be successful at work?
So that's a good question. At the risk of sounding like I'm about to put you in the counselor's chair, I would say what you just defined as your definition of career success, or said another way as I use in the book, how you just defined promotion really isn't a definition of promotion. What you just described is outcomes.
Outcomes.
You just described what your outcomes are. And this is, I'm telling you, until I wrote the book, this is just a very foreign concept and discussion in the workplace or in the places of career. So I'm gonna shameless plug. I would say go to careerwitt.com. At careerwit.com, I allow you to take a free assessment, so it's free to your listeners. And what that test will do is two things. First, it's going to tell you what is your core career value. And to be very clear with what that is. I'm not talking about what's your strengths, what's your opportunities, what industry aligns well with you, what type of job you're a best fit for. There are tons of great tests that are going to tell you that. I'm also not telling you what's your personality. You know, I'm not trying to Myers-Briggs you or DISC you. All great tools. But what I found that was lacking was there was no real value-based tool to answer one really important question. How do I define a promotion? And so this test simply says, based on your value responses, how you define a promotion. And there are 4 kinds. One is pay. It's real simple. Keep your titles, pay me. You can tell me how much you love me. You can give me a big office, but if I'm not getting money, I feel like my career is not moving forward. And for some people, that is a bona fide definition of career progression. For others, it's position. You know, you can give me all the money in the world, but if I don't have the title, I'm still in the same place. If my say-so doesn't get bigger or my scope of responsibility doesn't get bigger, then I don't feel like my career is progressing. Now those 2 are external, and for many people, that is their definition of a promotion. It's not based on anything other than whatever set of life values they've created to come to that place. And if you ask most people, I am telling you, probably 7 to 8 out of 10 are going to say, well, what's a promotion? Bigger job, bigger paycheck. And if it's really awesome, a bigger job and a bigger paycheck.
Right.
But when you look at the reasons people quit, it's fascinating when you look at these results. It's not around money or position. No, it's lack of fit to job. You know, this job doesn't connect with the core of who I am. It's flexibility and scheduling. It's relationship with my manager. Whoa, exactly. My lights just went out.
You still look good, though. Yeah, you actually look better. I can see you better.
Good. Oh man, I should have turned it off a long time ago. So that leads to, you look at, the core reasons people quit. That actually leads to 2 other definitions, what I call the 4 P's of promotion. So you've got pay, you've got position. The other 2 are personal security. And I describe this as, do I trust who I work with? Do they trust me? Am I considered a valuable player on the team? Am I considered a key player on the team? Do I have a relationship with those I work with? And no matter how much money you give me, no matter how much, of a bigger title you give me, if that's my core career value and that's not happening, it doesn't matter how much success I have, I am going to feel insecure and I'm going to feel like I'm not progressing, period. And I've been there. I've been there many times. I had the money, I had the position, I had the reputation, but 2 to 3 years into that role, I'm asking this basic question. Should I be doing more? Is there something else? I don't feel like this is enough. And that is a telltale sign that you're making your career decisions on not your core value, but an emotional motivated feeling. And I'll describe that in the morning. The 4th P is this idea of personal satisfaction. And it can have 1 or 2 meanings. So the first is balance. This happens to be my secondary core value. Does what I do at work leave room and provide respect for what's important for me outside of this place? And no matter how successful I am in that role, if balance is not a part of my, my career and what I'm experiencing, that I don't feel like I'm progressing. Even if I'm successful, here's what's funny, I'm successful, but I feel more stuck than I do moving forward. The other side of personal satisfaction is the idea of meaning in the work I do. I said a little earlier, this is 71% of your millennials say, meaning to the work I do is so important. And if any of your entrepreneurs are listening, I would say take note of this, because millennials, who in 2015 became the largest work group in the workforce, because your boomers are retiring at 10,000 a day. So your millennials are literally overnight, and you will see this happen every year. The workplace is drastically changing. So as is the common shtick in the workplace, if you're trying to motivate people through, well, work really hard, Janice, and you're going to make more money and you're going to get a bigger office. That's going to ring on dull ears with your millennials. And so if you don't realize that, you're going to lose. And I think, as a business owner, as a manager, and I've, been in national roles, regional roles, local roles, and each of those roles, when I was able to identify what my person's core value was, I had an employee for life. I had someone who thought that I got them and I understood what their motivation is. So even if it's my top performer and I'm talking to them about more money because I think, well, I'm paying them the most, they're my top performer, they should love this. But in reality, what's most important to her or him is work-life balance. And I don't show a very clear sense of respect and appreciation for their family or what's important for them outside of work. I'm going to have an employee who's my best performer, my best worker, and yet are on the inside feeling that something's missing. Their core value is not being tapped. The contrast of that is when you feed a person's value, they become the best person they can be. And I would say to anybody who wants to really just outpace everybody in the workplace or want to really become an entrepreneur and use this workplace as a school, so to speak, to really master a craft, then what I would say to those individuals is you have got to figure out your core value and feed it. Because when you feed your core value, you become the best you that you can be. When that happens, rising tide lifts all boats. And when you become the best you that you can be, people will pay great money for that. Whether you're in an organization or you started your own business, people pay a ton of money for good insight. And the more you follow your core values, everything else will follow. I can guarantee you that. So long answer, but hope that helped.
It definitely helped. Let me get into the intrapreneurship. Tell us a little bit about what it is and how our audience members can use it to get noticed at work and possibly get that big fat raise.
Yeah. So I'll start by saying this. Everybody is an entrepreneur. Everybody. And even if you're in the workplace, if you are not managing your career like you are Me Incorporated or Me LLC, you're making a big mistake. Because as I said, people will pay you great money from inside. And you've got people who work within the four walls of someone else's entrepreneurial vision, but the owners treat them like they're shareholders. And they make more money. Why? Because what do entrepreneurs make money on? Finding out ways to do things faster, better, quicker, cheaper. That's what we pay for. And so by figuring out how do I master my craft at work, you are actually an entrepreneur. Now, you've got two options. You can go, wow, man, I've really mastered this. Let me go start my own business and do this. Or you can become such a high value target at the place that you're in that they pay you more. And I've owned my own business and I've worked for somebody. I've owned my business and worked for somebody. And there's benefits to both. And I've been able to make a ton of money at either of those, and sometimes more for the places I've worked, because I've added such value and I've increased to their bottom line in such a way, or the culture of their organization in such a way that I become more profitable. So everybody's an entrepreneur. You're either an intrapreneur outside of someone else's workplace, or an intrapreneur inside of someone's workplace.
Well, that's really interesting. Now, if you do act like an entrepreneur at your job, are you acting independently of the team or the boss? How do you go about doing that exactly?
That's a good question. So, I believe this: if you're in a workplace environment, the decisions about your career are always made at a table you never sit at. And for those that they are discussing, how can we give this person more? How can we give them a bigger share of the business, i.e. a larger paycheck? How can we give them more scope, more responsibility, more flexibility? Whatever your core value is. If the decisions at that table start with one thing: performance. You've got to be performing. I've sat at many of those tables throughout my career, particularly my management career in corporate America. But that is not the most important component to that discussion. Let me tell you what I mean. Even if I have someone who in that organization is the best person for doing the job in the organization, it doesn't make them the best person for managing other people. And so what we talk about is attitude. And so when I'm at this table talking about Janice, the questions I'm asking is, so does Janice execute on her job really well? Yeah, she does. Awesome. All right. So tell me a little bit about Janice. How does she make the team better? When people are around her, do they get better? Does she add to the culture? Is she improving the culture? Does she look for ways to do it differently and better? And more importantly, is she patient with the no? And I talk about this in Outgrow Your Space. The biggest interview you will ever have is not an interview. The biggest interview you will ever have in your career, whether you work for somebody or you work for yourself and you did not land the contract, the biggest interview is how did you respond after the no? Everybody's watching. Everybody knows that's a gut kick. You were really going for it and you didn't get it. And at the end of that, what I'm looking for as a business owner or a manager, I'm looking for, man, did she take that one? Did she ask, if I wasn't smart enough to give it, did she ask me, give me specifics on, things that I didn't do? And not did she say, well, I didn't get it. You got to say, what? Right? Just kind of this attitude. But if she said, thank you for the consideration. Can you give me some things that I need to improve and work on? What are the top 2 or 3 things that cause the other individual to beat me out? And then then you go away from that and you actually begin executing. And Janice, who we turned down earlier, now we're regretting that we turned her down. And I'll give you a personal story. I actually talk about this in the book. There was a market-wide position to run a market, one of our large markets, in the company that I had worked for. And it was just, everybody just knew I would get the role. If it ever came up, I was apparent heir. And we went through some changes structurally, and it didn't come up. But we brought in someone from, another organization who was a part of that change. And I didn't post for it. I didn't ask for it. I've always had the philosophy is that I'm going to outgrow my space. Someone's going to tap me when the time is right. And my boss at that time came to me and said, hey, Rick, I just want to tell you, we've gone through these changes. We're absorbing this. So, this is the one place where we're not going to do anything new. We're just going to absorb the current structure that's out there now, which meant, translation, I don't get the job. I'm in the one place in the whole world where this happened. And so the job is not mine. Tell you what my response to this person was. My response was, thank you for considering me before I even ask. And my number one job will be to make sure that's the best market manager in the country. That boss was a mentor of mine. I continued to move up in the organization. I became a national manager within that organization. And guess who one of my biggest cheerleaders for that role was that boss. Yeah. And so your attitude is the most important factor. And so for those in the workplace, maybe you're hearing that for the first time. I can guarantee you, any entrepreneur listening who has employees are going, that's the guy I want working for me.
Yes.
So, I think what I see so many people do that really can falter their career is so we don't do anything fancy or sexy in the work we do. I mean, honestly, work is you do the same thing every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturday, and it doesn't change. It's not a different view every day or even every week or even every month. You do the same thing. There are a few people who look at that and realize, you know what? Repetition creates mastery, and they begin to master their space. They become the best at what they do. And you think about, the law of 10,000s, right? You do something 10,000 hours and you become a master at it. I mean, Bill Gates programmed for hours, and you think Steve Jobs, hours. These guys became the best at what they do because they did it so much. Most people in the workplace, Janice, are complaining about the box, trying to figure out how to get the heck out of the box. But there are a few people, statistically, Gallup says they're less than 3 in 10. Because Gallup says less than 3 in 10 people in America are emotionally or personally connected to the goals and the objectives of their organization. While that might freak out people who are listening that are workers, that scares the life out of entrepreneurs and business owners. It scares the life out of them. Mm-hmm. So less than 3%. Globally, that statistic is 13%. So let me say that another way. I talk about this in the book. If you look into any workplace parking lot, any employee parking lot, 7 out of the 10 cars that are there don't want to be there. So what does that mean? They're not engaged. But you've got at least 3 people who have figured out, I'm going to tap into this place. I'm going to master this place. My attitude is going to show that I am already an owner in this place. And those 3 people move up like crazy. And everybody else goes, well, they're just playing politics. Well, that's a cop-out. I mean, it's like, really, just get over it, grow up, quit pouting, walking away with your bicycle. What really happened is 3 people tapped into the goals of the organization. They tapped into people to mentor them, and they developed lasting relationships where people were willing to pour into them because they earned that through their attitude, which projected, I want to be here. And I'm an owner already. I own your vision and your dream as a business owner and entrepreneur, and those people skyrocket. That is, in and of itself, intrapreneurship.
So if they do all of those things, the attitude, add to the corporate culture, basically perform, like you said. So when they're not at that table and they're being talked about for that big raise, that you set yourself up to be successful in that definition where you will get a raise. That's interesting. Okay. Well,
and I would here's what I would add, because as you're speaking, and I did it too before my therapy, you are exclusively relegating the definition of a promotion to pay. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the population, that's not how everybody defines progression. At the careerwit.com assessment, I'm actually tracking everyone who's taken the test. So we've got hundreds of people that have taken the test.
Here's what I found. CareerWit with 1 T or 2?
2 T's. It's a play on my last name. CareerWit, WHIT.com. Okay. So of those who have taken the test now, it's interesting. As a matter of fact, I'll give you live results. Can you still see me?
I can still see you.
Okay, great. I just went to a different screen. So let me pull it up. So here's the latest results. And so again, what does this test tell you? It tells you what your core value definition for promotion is based on your values. And then it tells you, are you motivated to make career decisions? Or even more importantly, are you emotionally filtering how you feel about the progression of your career based on those core values or based on a different value? And when you do it on a different value other than your core values, you're making an emotional career decision. So far, of the hundreds of people that have taken this assessment, here's what I've found. I've found that there are roughly 70% of the population that is misaligned. Said another way, they're either managing or emotionally filtering how they think about their career on the wrong core value. So if for you, your core value is this idea of, do I have a strong relationship? Do I trust the people I work for? Do they treat me like I'm a key player? That's my core definition, personal security. If that's my core definition, but I'm misaligned, it means, although that is my core value definition for career progression, I'm actually managing my career and making decisions based on pay or position, whatever the misalignment is. And I'm telling you, we don't want to admit it because we all think we manage our careers emotionally or logically. I was the first to think that, but the truth is you're not. You're managing your career emotionally, and you're looking. You may be in the wrong culture. Let me just say that up front. There are some horrible bosses out there, but 2.5 million people quit their job every month, and that stat hasn't changed in over 2 decades almost of tracking the jobs report numbers, the government. 2.5 million people every month. Let me put that in perspective. Only about 1.6 million are let go or fired every month. So 1 million more people quit their jobs every month. When we've had a great economy, when we've had a bad economy, that statistic has not changed. So what does that say? It is. And so, but you may be in the right place, you may be in the wrong place. Here's my theory is that many people are in the right place. But if you're looking for a bigger title to determine whether you're progressing or not, when your core value may be work-life balance, then you're never going to find what you're not looking for. You're going to feel like your career is not progressing. And I just told you, only a few percentage points less than money, work is one of the most stressful things to Americans, more so than family health, family responsibility, and personal health. It is extremely emotional. Why? What I said earlier. We're not really answering the question, is my career progressing? We're answering the question, is my life moving forward? I am using work to measure the most important life question. Am I growing? We ask this in relationships. We ask this in where we spend our time. And work is one of the very few places that we use promotion to measure success. Right. Very few places. We don't tell our family members and our loved ones, well, we can't be promoted on something next year. I'm done with you. It's rare that we would do that. And so if that's so intrinsically important and we don't really know what our definition is, then we're in trouble. And we might find ourselves never finding what we say we're looking for and hoping for, career progression, because we're defining it as pay, when for you it may be work-life balance. And because of the flexibility, you feel this sense of value and empowerment that you actually get better at what you do.
Right. I just want to address one of our viewers because he said that being in the workplace, you are building someone else's dream. And WGP 7110, I said in the beginning that sometimes we must let our job finance our business until our business finance our job. So It's not always smart just to quit and start your own business. Sometimes you have to still work. And that leads me to another question. Basically, what should we consider before we leave our employer when we're looking to start our own business?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So a couple things. One, have you truly mastered the basics of the job you're doing? And if you've mastered the basics, have you figured out at that job how to do that very same mundane everyday job better, faster, more efficiently, quicker, and with a great attitude? If you haven't, you have not demonstrated entrepreneurship right where you are. And the first and most important step to outgrowing your space, there's 9 steps I talk about. Here's number 1. Be willing to start at the bottom. I love to use a life verse, from my faith and Christian, but the verse is, don't despise small beginnings. And this loses most people. When you despise small beginnings, you find yourself thinking, I am too good for the job I've got. And I told you the number one discussions at tables you don't sit at is attitude.
Yes.
Number two is master the basics of your job. Those 2 or 3 people who are outpacing you, they figured out how to actually master that role and keep improving on that role. Those are people who go to the actual owners and business owners of that business and say, well, how did you do this? And how were you able to cut that budget? And how are you able to improve revenues? And yet you still grew and you added people. These are core things. And if you're talking about starting your own business, it's like you're going to school for free. It blows my mind at people that will spend tons of money. I did it. That'll spend tons of money to be educated and mortgage that education and lose the most valuable place to learn how to eventually run your own business, work for somebody, and get so good that you keep moving up, and let them pay for the lessons that you learn along the way. Because when it's yours, and if you haven't, figured out that trick that boss learned on how to improve revenue while adding and growing, it's going to cost you.
Well, here's a question about attitude. And you talked about that a little bit earlier. Do you think attitude and confidence are linked in the workplace? Thank you, Be Wise.
I do. I think your confidence is a product of how good you become at something. So they're not quite the same thing, but yes, they are connected. Specifically with attitude, there are 3 things that are core to improving, growing, and eventually outgrowing your space, whether that's taking the manager's chair or creating your own space and making your own chair. The 3 things that are important. Attitude toward the current job. Because if you think it sucks, you're going to think your life sucks. You're going to think you're not moving forward, and you're going to disengage. And the moment you disengage, you stop learning. Number 2, attitude toward the people around me. If I've got a bad attitude toward the role, I'm not expressing patience. I'm going to brood a sense of entitlement and impatience, something we all struggle with at some point constantly in our lives. Then I'm not going to engage with people around me. And when I don't engage with people around me, a couple of things are important. One, I don't demonstrate a team attitude. I don't have what's called, what I call servant leadership. It's not my word, but I'll use it. So I don't build relationships with people around me. By the way, if I start my own thing and those people are good, they might be future employees or managers for me. But if they saw me, in the workplace and I was disengaged, or I was good, but I had a horrible attitude about it, they're going to say, there ain't no way I'm ever going to work for that person. You gotta be kidding me. Unless they really came to the light, and they got to prove it to me. So we don't have a great attitude toward the people we work with. We don't engage with our boss. So we really never get that insight. And what do I mean by that? Keep coming to them with questions. As you master your basic, ask for stretch assignments. What is that? That's homework for when you run your own business. And you begin to learn when you do that. But if as Gallup says, almost, or 7 or nearly 8 out of 10 people in the workplace are disengaged emotionally, it's like saying this person has the keys, but I refuse to build a relationship to open the door in my future. I mean, I could be crazy, but for me, that's crazy. You think of any super successful person you can think of that you see on TV who runs a business. You recently had Shark Tank celebrity on your show. Now imagine working for this guy, and you're so anxious to do your own thing that you forget to build a relationship with this person to a point where he trusts you so much that you gain insight and wisdom, and 1 or 2 things happen when you do that. You end up running one of his successful companies which probably will make you more money or as much money as you ever thought you would have made on your own. Or you have learned so much from this person that you run your business more efficiently. And so attitude is the most important of those things. And confidence, it's a byproduct of that.
So it's definitely connected.
It's connected.
All right. Well, we ran a little bit over time, but Rick, you're an author. You talked about your book a little bit. Can you tell us about where we can find it and basically let everybody know why they should have this book in their hand?
Yeah, so anywhere books are sold, you can find it. Find it Amazon.com, Barnes & Nobles, Target, Walmart, any of those places. It's out there, so you can find the book. I'd encourage you to check it out. Why should you get it? It's really going to make you stop and answer the question, why in the world am I on this hamster wheel? And why is it so doggone emotional when something doesn't happen the way I thought it should happen? Once you get that, now you understand your values. Your values shape your attitude.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Rick. And if you all enjoyed this interview, please tweet it out so that others can benefit from the replay. You can join me on Monday, same time, same place. We'll be back with lots of valuable business information. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter. Take care and good night.